Here we have a DCD985 Dewalt. The lights are on but no one's home. It was responding to an odd smack. It sort of was making it go, but it stopped doing that. It's giving me nothing at all, so that reminds me of the old lesson that violence is not always the answer. But I must get this open and see what's going on. As with a lot of these old brush drills, the first thing you do is open up to see if the brushes are at fault. I've ordered the brushes for it, I have them here. I've ordered the genuine DeWalt ones, made in US, so that's very good. You can get generic ones of these on eBay for about £9, these are about £14, so it's still worth it to get your drill going if it works. So I'm just going to remove the 4 screws, 2 here, 2 here, and the rest of the screws down the side, and pull the side off. Right, I've all the screws removed now. The smaller ones are the ones on the side, and the bigger one are the ones that hold the front housing onto the clamshell. So what you have to do is move that forward a little bit like that. That pulls out little slots. It sort of slots onto the clamshell. If you pull that out, you should be able to get this off fairly easily. That should let go there, like that. Inside this one's fairly clean, so that's always good to see. See, there's more work cleaning it up. You would think to look at these brushes, there ain't much wear on them. But I don't know if you can see that. But they're kind of stuck in place, they're not making good contact, they're not sliding well up and down like they should be. And that could be our issue. But the next thing we have to do is, there's 2 screws holding this on, and 2 screws in there holding another little similar thing on. And I'll remove these 4 screws and then I should be able to lift the whole thing out. Right, I'm selecting the screws now. Stick those screws out there. And that little housing came with me that holds down that bearing. And there's a similar thing here. It's probably the same thing anyway. Same type of thing at the very least. 2 screws and a little plastic thing that holds everything in place. So we should now be able to remove this front section, the gear assembly. That should come right out. See, there's some little knots there. See if we can slide this speed control out. Yeah. You'll be able to get it out of the housing like that. So that's removed from the motor now. And tease this bit up now, just a little bit, and you should be able to remove that now too. So that's the motor. And if we examine these brushes, they aren't making good contact with this, and that's probably a problem. If you compare them with the new set's sort of spring loaded under load. See, springing back and forward. These are not. There's a gap there. That can't really go under those conditions. And if you need the part number 4, I'm going to show you this again. part number for that is that number begin with N. It's N012060. That's the part number for your brushes that you'll need. Next thing I would suggest you do is, at the very least, give this a little clean. And that bearing there, that's running freely, and there's another bearing there, and that's running freely. Check those bearings when you have that out, and also take it out of the fill coil, give the little fill coil away, because a lot of debris gets in there, it can cause all sorts of issues. That ain't that dirty, that's good. So hopefully our armature is okay. So do is put this together again. When you're putting this together, there's a little notch there. So it goes together like this. And there's a place for that notch to go on there. I'll show you that later when we're putting it together properly. So, this here, you pry these apart and feed your motor through. Feed your motor through like that. And that's ready to set on. And you remove your old brushes using little clip X pliers. Use those two wires. Yep, that's relevant now. What you do is you put the red wire in this one and the black wire on that one, like that. And there's a little groove for that to sit on and slide into place. We'll not slide it all the way in yet until we have the housing put back on. And this takes a bit of wiggling just to get that. Let's see. This can take a bit of wiggling to get that cog back in again. That took a little bit of perseverance, but you know, you'll get there. You slide that back in again like that. You slide that in like that. And when you get to that stage, you make sure your wires are in the tracks so they don't get crushed when you put the clamshell on. Now that's sitting in the right position there now, that fill coil. It's into the little notch that's in the housing that I showed you earlier. And what we have to do is replace these now. Put these back into place where they were. They appear to be completely identical. They're designed to sit on these bearings and hold them in position. That's a good shot there, what do we see? So, except for the 4 screws that hold this front housing onto the clamshell, the rest of these screws is all the same, so don't worry about putting them into the right place. It's only those 4 that are different in the front. So there's that, and then this number 2, put that in there. Again, tighten up the screws. And with those screws tightened up, you can now, I believe, slide on the clamshell back on where it was. So it's just a matter of putting in all the screws now and putting it all back together and trying it out. But that's all the screws tightened, so one thing that remains to do is put in the battery and see if that's been successful. Here goes nothing. This fully charged battery. Oh yeah. Speed 1, speed 2, speed 3, hammer. That's how you replace the brushes in a Dewalt DCD985. And if your machine's not going, your DCD985 is not going, that's the first thing to check. It's a cheap fix for £14 or less.